All right, everyone. So Scott Steiner revealed who he thinks killed WCW. This is what he had to say during an interview with Sportskeeda. Anybody that says anything different don't know what the F they're talking about. You had a glimpse of some of it. It was Brad Siegel and all the higher ups. Trust me, when I first went there in 87, 88, we heard right off the bat the only reason we got it is because Ted Turner liked wrestling. Then we found out none of the executives wanted it. They were under him. And the only thing that kept it was Ted. When AOL forced Ted out, they had no more power. The executives got what they wanted. Look where AEW is at right now. They're at the same situation just because the executives are not there no more. So the reason we're doing this video is to talk about this because when you talk about WCW and why it failed and why it ended up going the way it did, I think what Scott Steiner is saying here is important. Everybody wants to put blame somewhere. Everybody wants to blame whether it's Hogan or Hall or Nash or Bischoff or you know somebody. They're trying to point the finger, or Vince Russo, right? Everybody is trying to put the blame somewhere. And to me, WCW was a few things, right? There's not one big problem that forced WCW to go the way it did. It was a collection, right? It was a bunch of problems that ended up sending it where it went. And I do think the reason that Scott Steiner's right on the money with the executive portion is because I feel like even if it wasn't these executives who forced it to fail, because it's not like WCW was this, rocket ship when it failed, right? It's not like when you look at ECW, right? A lot of people talk about ECW and how it went. ECW really was a management thing with money and other things that caused it to fail. It wasn't a lack of interest or the product got bad. It was, if you watch that WC or ECW documentary that WWE made, Paul Heyman makes it clear it was too much growth at that point. It was too big for the company, right? They grew too much and they couldn't actually afford to pay all the things because pay-per-view providers weren't paying them on time until they could put on a pay-per-view, but then they couldn't put on the pay-per-view without the money from these. So there was a lot of other things, right? So that's an example of a company that was kind of let down by outside factors, right? Kind of let down by growing too much and no company being able to help them out to grow, on a path that was sustainable and able to continue. In this case, WCW, when it fell, the ratings were going, right? The ratings were tanking. It had to do a complete rework. And so I think it certainly can't be put on the executives, right? Because although maybe they were getting involved, they weren't the ones who did all of that, right? That wasn't all they were doing. But it's important to remember, right, when you're talking about this, that WWE, if you look at its history, right, has had a bunch of up times and down times, right? So that's, I think, where you have to be very careful with WCW, and why I do think the executives, as Scott Steiner pointed out, are the ones ultimately to blame, is because through WWE's ups and WWE's downs, they've been able to survive because they've existed, right? In WCW's case, as soon as the down times came, there was no ability to turn the corner, and there was a decision made to get rid of wrestling. Had they decided to sell to Eric Bischoff and his group that wanted to buy it and given them that time that they wanted on TV, then we probably would still have WCW around today. Now, would it be as big as WWE? Probably not, right? But I definitely think Scott Steiner is right in the money that there were all of these problems with WCW. That's 100% true. But he's right that the executives not wanting wrestling was the one thing that was insurmountable. You could have gotten over the bad contracts or the fact that all these older stars were the ones who remained on top, because all you have to do is just get through that moment, right? You could send Hogan home, send the other guys home that were basically done, and start building up a new crop of wrestler, and maybe that would have worked, right? A new generation of guys coming up, and you could start building. Maybe the WCW would still be around today. So thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next.